Good evening, ladies and ghouls, and welcome to my backyard. A truly terrifying place for a truly horrifying part of the year. Halloween. A time in which we use ghosts and ghouls and other frightening things like taxes as an excuse to gorge ourselves on too many sweets. I genuinely, truly cannot think of a better basis for a holiday. It is also, however, a time in which we tell, hear, and watch scary stories. And that, my dear Neanderthals and troglodytes, is why I'm here on this frightening evening. For you see, recently I've taken a slight interest in these tales, in these hearty anecdotes, in these robustly frightening legends, in those utterly distressing and nightmare-inducing, fearful fictions. Spooky, scary stories, as it were. And as such, I am here on this most frightening evening to regale you with one of these tales. One of these quote-unquote films, as the cool kids call them, which is deeply and personally emotional to me. A tale which makes you ask, are we perhaps the true monsters that these stories tell us of? A tale about a man filled with insurmountable rage and anger, capable of violence far beyond our human comprehension. A story about a man willing to go frightening lengths to destroy the evil that plagues him. I am, of course, referring to the 2021 film, Willy's Wonderland. So please, join me this evening as we enter the spooky, scary zone. Hey there. Hey, it's me. It's me, Spooky Man Johnson, back after, how long's it been this time? Who cares? It's October, and that means ghosts and ghouls and goblins and scary movies. Horror is a genre that I have been weirdly fascinated by for a while now, and one that over the past year or so I have started looking into a little bit more deeply. And so I figured, it's Halloween. What better time to talk about it? And so that's why I'm here tonight, to talk to you about what has honestly become genuinely, I'm not kidding, one of my favorite movies that I've seen this year. That's, of course, Willy's Wonderland is a movie that I was looking forward to ever since I heard about its announcement back in, 2019, I think. It's a concept that I was 110% on board with from the moment I heard about it. But boy, did it exceed whatever expectations feeble little 2019 may have had for it. So let's just start at the base premise, because I know what those of you who maybe haven't seen it or haven't heard about it until now are thinking. Well, gee golly, it's a movie about the funny meme man stuck inside Chuck E. Cheese. Well, what's so great about that? Well, I'll tell you what's so great about that. Now, of course, any synopsis I give you isn't going to do the film justice. It's a work of art with nuances and complexities that require more in-depth analysis. With that said, here is why Willy's Wonderland is a revolutionary film more than worth your time. Willy's Wonderland, essentially, it asks the question, what if Doom took place in FNAF instead of Hell? And yes, I'm not kidding, that's the basis of why I love this movie so much. Willy's is a purely adrenaline-fueled, fully self-aware, over-the-top, wild ride that is more concerned with asking, what if the horror monsters just picked the wrong guy and got it handed to them, than it is with trying to genuinely scare you. Willy's is one of those few horror movies you see, with modern releases anyway, where it's willing to just go off the rails and have a ton of fun with what it does. The movie succeeds pretty decently at being a comedy, and it is more than aware of that. The comedic timing of certain shots or reactions from Cage is absolutely on point. Not to mention how well the camera is used for comedic effect. It's just...
Okay then.
It's beautiful. Even when it comes to characters, aside from the janitor, it doesn't waste much of its time trying to convince you that they're legit, meaningful characters that have a purpose. No, it's fully aware of why characters like this are here, and that's to ramp up the kill count and poke fun at how these throwaway college characters are usually written. I mean, these two get killed literally because they decide to go do things in the room called the Super Happy Fun Time room, which also happens to be the room where the killers did their stuff. It's really weird, and it goes a decent bit further beyond just dialogue or character reactions. One of my personal favorites being the scene where Cage discovers the pinball machine, which, and I kid you not, is played out like an intimate romance scene between two lovers, jazz music and all. And it only continues from there as he proceeds to lovingly clean it off in montage. It's so romantic, it brings a tear to my eye. It's just... oh, it's so beautiful. Oh, thank you, Nick. And then he just spends the rest of the movie cleaning, killing an animatronic, playing pinball, cleaning, repeat. Most of the movie is weirdly solid with its timing or sheer absurdity. These demonic animatronics embody the overly vibrant and cheery showmanship of something like Chuck E. Cheese so entirely while they try to kill people stuck inside. There are two scenes where they just have a musical number on stage, and one is where they compare the college kids to chickens being hunted and eaten. It's somehow equally a little bit creepy and insanely hilarious for just how schlocky it is. And then you've got the aspects of this movie as an action horror, along with the comedy. Admittedly, as a horror, it's not what I would constitute as being outright horror. I mean, it's got those elements, and stylistically it does, but if you're going in expecting to be scared, it's just not gonna happen, and that's okay. Horror doesn't always necessarily need to be extremely grim and dark and suffocating and outright terrifying. Sometimes it's best just to have fun, and that's what Willy's does as an action horror comedy. Speaking of, this movie as an action flick just straight up kinda rocks. It might as well be just an hour and a half of the janitor beating the heck out of animatronics in unceasingly intense and weirdly brutal ways. The things barely even get the chance to fight back, let alone get a hit in, with a few exceptions. And that's rad. Like I said before, it's basically what if Doom took place in Chuck E. Cheese instead of hell, and it works really well. There's something strangely cathartic about going to a horror flick and just watching an hour and a half of some silent protagonist angrily beating the crap out of these really slimy, evil, demonic killer machines. So really, Willy's is a feel-good movie, if anything. The fights themselves, I mean, they could benefit from some better choreography, but like, come on, this rocks anyway. Which is due in part, I think, to how strangely rhythmic the action is. It's shot and edited in a way that has a beat and rhythm to it, like a hard southern rock song like Freebird. I know this because there was a whole chunk of time this year where my hard drive was broken and being repaired, so I couldn't work on my projects, and spent those months making like 10 different edits of this movie to different songs in my spare time. It's a problem. I haven't been able to stop. I am intimately familiar with every frame of this movie, and it's a problem. But I can't stop. I don't want to stop. Anyway, the action is weirdly intense, and well, intense may not be the right word. I do love how chaotic and wild everything about it is. Like, the distortion of the camera in parts near the end where he really starts to go nuts. Oh, it's so much fun. The visual direction style as a whole isn't the most artistically beautiful, but it's loads of fun, and I think there's something to be genuinely admired about that. And then you've got the other characters who share this movie, all of whom are so wildly out there that I really don't think there was really much of any intention of writing these characters seriously at all. You've got a mechanic who spends the whole movie chewing on a big ol' meat stick.
We had a car chase around here a while back, so boy got 150 miles an hour, just launched it right off Chester's Peak, man. It's like a superhero whip. Whoop.
A state officer who looks and acts like he just came off the set of a 50s sitcom.
Oh, don't get me wrong. I got a wife and kid on the way, and I do love the overtime pay.
Double overtime.
Right.
A sheriff who is generally a really pretty crappy person who hates just about everything.
All you had to do was die. Was that so hard?
And then you have the cherry on top. The man, the big guy, Mr. Tex himself. This guy is like a walking meme. Every mannerism, every line delivery, everything down to the costuming is the perfect storm.
Oh, look at here. Congratulations. You are officially on staff.
And while aspects of these characters remind me of stereotypes, which I generally detest, I am willing to overlook it because of just how over the top these characters are. And then you've got outside of those, the janitor and the animatronics, that's really it. The film has a really small cast, which makes everything feel really weird because it makes the town feel so empty. You don't really see anything else, and so it ends up feeling like a weird kind of purgatory, which I kind of love. And then, of course, tying it all together, you have the biggest man himself. Over the last year or so, I've come to realize that Cage genuinely is probably one of, nay, is my favorite actor across the board. And most of you are probably hearing that and immediately think, oh yeah, he's being ironic. Cage is a big meme. No, I do not tolerate this kind of talk in this household. Over the last year, I've come to realize that my man is far more than what his internet identity was during most of the 2010s. It may have started out as me liking him ironically, but I've come to genuinely have a deep respect for him as an artist. I mean, most of the time. He brings out such a unique vibrancy and life to every character he plays. Almost. He's made a few mistakes, I'm not gonna lie. Prisoners of the Ghostland was... Now that was the scariest movie that I have seen this year. That was...
It's ghosts! Ghosts, I tell you!
Man. But that doesn't discredit the incredible work he's done in the past, nor does it make him a washed-up has-been. His performance in films from recent years like Mandy or Color Out of Space range anywhere from wild but lively and sincere to achingly painful to what is my favorite movie I've seen this year, maybe even one of my favorites, period, Pig, where his performance is one of the most intensely beautiful human performances I have ever seen. The man is far more than the meme, and I would say the same goes for this movie, even if it does kind of fall into that wild persona. But I mean, that's fine. I have no issue with that as a persona. My guy is pretty extravagant as is. The difference between his performance here and in other films is that, well, he's completely mute throughout. Half the time when people talk about Cage, it's about his wild line delivery in tandem with his mannerisms. But here, you don't have both working at once. It's nothing but physical acting and storytelling. His performance genuinely reminds me a lot of silent era actors, the likes of Keaton or Chaplin. It relies on his physical timing and mannerisms, and the way he treats the environment around him, the way he carries himself, so on and so forth. And also this intense stare that he holds for like 90% of the movie. There are so many shots in this movie that are just him staring directly into the camera with this look on his face. I love it. One of my personal favorite examples of this silent era kind of feeling that I get from a lot of it is when he's about to tag team this chameleon thing, and then he realizes it's break time, so he just kind of is good. His comedic timing and the way he carries himself says so much more than any crazy line delivery here ever could. And this goes for just about everything, especially during the fights. The kind of physicality that Cage brings to these fights is crazy. The man is like a wild animal in a frenzy. He beats and beats and beats on these things mercilessly in weirdly brutal ways, and it is rad. My guy, he joyfully curb stomps a gorilla into a urinal. Look at that smile. If that isn't true happiness, then I don't know what is. And then you've got the fact that without Cage, this film would have been very, very different in pretty much every way, I feel. Because you see, Willy's is a low-budget, self-promoted debut from the screenwriter G.O. Parsons. The guy sent the script to any number of people who all looked at it and resoundingly said no. In a podcast interview, I think it was, I saw somewhere, he said something along the lines of like, "You'll get a million no's, but one yes can change everything." We showed it to a number of people who all said no, until Nicolas Cage said yes. Cage even went around defending the script when they were trying to find distributors and funding for it. In an interview with EW, he said, "A lot of people would read it and be like, why is he cleaning? Why isn't he running and hiding for his life? This is unbelievable. This would never happen. Nobody is ever going to watch this thing." And Nicolas Cage was just sitting there going, "No, this is exactly the kind of movie which needs to be made." My guy supported and pushed for and was completely on board with this little crazy movie from the get-go, and that rocks. This is a relatively short and simple video, but that's very suitable, as Willy's is a relatively short and simple movie. It's not concerned with trying to make you break down emotionally or say something particularly profound, or trying to make you jump out of your seat with its scares, even. It just says, I really don't care. I just want to go wild and have some fun, man. And that is where the real beauty in it lies. It understands exactly what it's doing, and it knows how to do it relatively well. I mean, the writer himself, in that same interview with EW, even said directly, you can't take it seriously. You have to be able to mock it and say, this thing just attacked him, and now he's cleaning a stove? What's going on? It's a blast through and through, with some genuine creativity in how it goes about that. I wouldn't call Willy's a forgettable, generic popcorn flick either. It's got some genuine heart and artistic merit in how it presents itself aesthetically and otherwise, even if that artistry is relatively straightforward. It's a genuinely really solid modern B-movie with some really fun schlock, and let me tell you, is it a good time with the boys. I watched this thing with some friends a while back, and we just spent the entire time laughing our asses off and having loads of fun. Willy's is the kind of horror flick that understands exactly what it is doing, and it does it really well. I don't really know what else there is to be said about it. I would genuinely like to see this continue on as a series of anthological sequels, each only just barely tied to the last. So here's my pitch, right? Alright? I'm just gonna throw this out here real quick before the end. After the events of Willy's, the janitor finds himself in any number of horror movie scenarios. You can take your pick. Throw him in Saw if you want to. I'm thinking like a run-down carnival or circus, maybe a killer car movie, or just an entire movie of Cage and a Halloween/Friday the 13th type slasher, where it's him and this killer duking it out for an hour and a half. Heck, I would even like to see my guy stuck in a cult town that's frozen in time, like Resident Evil style, where he has to fight off an entire village of crazed cultists. You know, give us some homage to the Wicker Man. There are so many possibilities, and I think it would be loads of fun. A haunted house style flick where Cage and a cast of characters are stuck in this old mansion, and it's just Cage beating on a bunch of classic 50s horror movie monsters, like Frankenstein or something, leading up to a fight between him and some Frankenstein Willy abomination. Please, guys, listen, I think there's something here. I feel like I might be onto something. Just please give me a job. I'm open to work on this stuff. Come on, just let me do this. Please, I'm begging you.